We are like,
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our weekly Sunday meeting. So, this is our 75th consecutive meeting, and we're talking about all things COVID. So, welcome to the 75th DMA IMA NDB Meet. And today we have Dr. Nidhi with us, who is the Associate Medical Director of ENT and the head of the Safety Committee at Shrop's Charity Eye Hospital in Daryaganj. She has been taking over this session and very efficiently, might I add. And today we are going to be talking about all things COVID yet again. A brief COVID and vaccination update for everyone. I think it's much needed. I feel that the cases are rising a bit, especially in the eastern part of the country. There has been quite a bit of an uptick. So I would hand it over to Dr. Nidhi to discuss the COVID update as well as the vaccination update. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Meenakshi. I agree that this is a very critical time. This time is similar to what we were in March, with only one difference. Now we have about 55% of our population vaccinated. Again, the caveat is that a good part of this population got vaccinated around January. So we don't yet know the immune status of the early vaccinated people. So a lot of things are happening and all over the world, in fact, and there are lessons to be learned from it. And so we're going to examine that. But I would also request Meenakshi to let us know about Sir's ideas about today's day, because Ritu was also saying कि सर का भी एक वीडियो है इसके ऊपर, but सर हमेशा साइंस को और ट्रेडिशन को लॉजिकली इतना अच्छी तरह से ब्लेंड करके समझाते थे कि हर एक चीज का साइंटिफिक लॉजिक क्या है, इंक्लूडिंग आवर ट्रेडिशनल थिंग्स. सो वील probably hear that from you too.
I don't think I'll be able to do as much justice to it as Sir did. So we are just finding the video and we'll be playing that in just a couple of minutes. So until then, if we want, we can either do the COVID update or we can, hear from the others about what kind of COVID patients are coming or whether they're not coming. What is everyone's take on this? So we have a lot of doctors from New Delhi. We even have Dr. Mahavi Daruka from West Bengal. So if anyone has any, experiences that they would like to share in the recent past, we could take that, or so we have the video ready.
I feel like we are getting a lot of post-COVID, but I'm not seeing as much COVID now, but I would love to hear from others.
So we do have the Karwa Chauth video ready. So if that's okay, if you want, we can just do this.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that,
and
yes.
then we can continue our discussions. So yes, Ritu, we can have the video. I'd love to
from Heart Care Foundation of India. करवा चौथ को मनाया जा रहा है, जिसके अंदर में 200 लेडीज को एक पिक्चर हॉल में पिक्चर दिखाई जाएगी, उनकी मेहंदी सेरेमनी, उनकी नेल आर्ट सेरेमनी कर्सी भारती तनेजा, और उसके बाद में वी हैव ए मूवी इंटरवल जहां पे हम बातचीत करेंगे इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ बी फेथफुल टू योर पार्टनर. हम जानते हैं ABC ऑफ HIV प्रिवेंशन, A फॉर एब्स्टिनेंस, शादी से पहले एब्स्टिनेंस, B फॉर बी फेथफुल टू योर पार्टनर, एंड C अगर आप अपने पार्टनर को फेथफुल नहीं हो तभी कॉन्डोम का इस्तेमाल करो. थैंक यू.
No, this is not the video that we wanted. Okay, this is some other video. We'll start our discussion. In the meantime, we'll try to look for the actual video. So if anyone would like to share, I think Dr. Vibha Mehta is here from the western part of the country. And if Dr. Vibha, any uptick in the cases that you're seeing in the OPD? I think everyone is
Hello.
busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cases of COVID. I am seeing only
Yes.
dengue cases these days, all coming out to be positive dengue. But COVID, no. Not even a single patient from Delhi. Online from Mumbai and Bangalore, I have some patients.
Okay. So Delhi is showing around 30 to 40 cases. So I wouldn't expect any of the doctors from Delhi to be reporting a lot of cases. Yes, but the other parts of the country, yes, there's been a slight uptick. So, Dr. Nidhi, I think we can start off with the official COVID update. Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about the COVID situation globally in the country and the vaccination update and how it affects us. So in the last week, we have, I want to reduce the tiles on my, can everybody see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right. So in the last week, we have seen India's numbers progressively go down. And that's a good thing. As Dr. Meenakshi was saying, that there are some concern points and we should be careful about them. So we had started the week with about 25,000 cases, and we have finished the week with about 15,000 cases. So people might say that this has happened because we are not testing too much, but that's not true. So as of 20th October, the 7-day average of tests was pretty high. You can see it here. It's 11,52,000. The test positivity rate was encouragingly low, 1.3%. We want this to progressively fall, and it has shown a progressive fall. The main contributors even today are Maharashtra and Kerala, mainly Kerala. There is a slight uptick in the cases from the Northeast, and that is something to focus on. So this is the official picture from the Ministry of Health. A large part of our population, eligible population, has received at least one dose of the vaccine, but a good part of it received it around January, February. So we have to assess the immune status of that part of the population, including healthcare workers who received this vaccine in January, February, March. Fully vaccinated, our population is, well, close to about 35%, but not significant enough to give us herd immunity. The ICMR surveys do say that the Delta wave probably has resulted in seropositivity, even in children, to the tune of 65 to 67%, which is encouraging. If we look at Kerala, and I want you to see the shape of the graph here. If you see the first flattened sort of prolonged wave, that was when we were seeing less than 10,000, but we were seeing cases. And then we have around April when there is a sudden peak. And then from July onwards, Kerala has never really gone down. And see the shape of this graph. And you will also see that it is UK has a similar shape. We'll come to that a little later. This could be because Kerala is testing a lot, but there are other things that could be contributing to this shape. Maharashtra is showing typically the shape that India has. They have finally started going down, but there is a baseline which is not yet quite hit. So we are still seeing around 1,000 to 1,500 cases, but which is very, very much better than the peak of around 65 to 70,000 that we saw in April. Goa, pretty much okay now, hitting 50s and less. Uttar Pradesh, very, very good, hitting 20s and less. Delhi, very good, hitting 20s and less. So what Dr. Meenakshi was saying, if we look at that active cases, we see the graph is not really quite going down. Even though our daily averages seem to be less than the weekly rolling average, the graph is still showing a little bit of an uptrend, the blue part. The recovered is showing a little bit of a downtrend, which can be explained by the fact that actually, जब numbers कम होंगे तो recovered भी कम होंगे. The deaths have definitely uncoupled from the graph, and the confirmed cases are flattening out. So that's very encouraging. And as of 23rd of October, the status of vaccination in all eligible populations, according to the government release, is also very encouraging. So we need to re-examine at this stage on two things. One is, where would we want our second dose to come in? Because the states have about 12 million doses, but the second dose is due only after the new year now, with the current rate of vaccination, because we have 3 months in between. But we could do early vaccination and vaccinate our population, eligible population, before the new year, if we reduce that interval to 6 weeks to 8 weeks, as has been done all over the world. The case positivity trajectory has consistently fallen and has flattened around 1.2%. If this continues to fall, we are on a 7-day moving average, we are doing well. We do need to follow this trend very, very tightly. And the states which go above this trend, so around 55 districts had higher than 5, which fell to 50 districts in the last week. There were still about 100 districts which were hovering around the 1.2 positivity mark, and 50 districts which are hovering around the 5% positivity mark. So when people say that we are getting less number of cases because we are testing less, I think that is not quite true. We are continuing to test, and which is a good thing, because many countries are now giving up on testing, including the US. CDC has said that only people who report with COVID symptoms should be tested, whereas India is testing on demand right now. Vaccination is, as I said, now we will see a lull in the daily vaccinations, because with that much population having received the first dose, now the second dose is due only after 2 to 3 months for most of these people who have been vaccinated in the last month. So as far the world, our world in data is concerned, about 50% of the world population has received at least one dose. 6.8 billion doses have been administered globally, and 23.24 million are administered each day. But what is important to note here is only 3% of the people in low-income countries have received at least one dose. And because of this, till we can say that almost 80% of the world population receives the COVID vaccination, we cannot declare the world COVID free. Until we can do that, there is always the chance that a new variant will emerge. So looking at this, if we see India in total number of doses administered is way ahead of the rest of the world. We have done a remarkable job, and I think we need to congratulate everyone who has contributed to it. जो vaccinators हैं वो दूर दराज के इलाकों में they have crossed water streams and walked the last mile to be able to do this. They have done a remarkable job doing what they have done. The US, which comes next in the number of doses, is a third of what we have done, or less, in fact. Germany, but you know, these countries have very low populations. And hence, Israel at 6.2 million has vaccinated 80 to 90% of its country. Germany at 57 million vaccinations has vaccinated 80% of its country. Russia is a special case. There is a lot of vaccine hesitancy in Russia, and Russia right now is in the midst of a bad phase. UK, again, a special case, has vaccinated about 80% of its population, but is showing significant uptick in numbers. And the scientific world seems to think कि UK में जो आज हो रहा है, वो दुनिया में कल होगा. That really depends on whether we are seeing the emergence of a new variant. If we are simply talking about Delta, or we are talking about Delta subvariants, it is very likely that UK will not be replicated either in US or in India or in Israel, because these places have dealt with Delta in the last wave. But if a new variant emerges, that is going to be very tragic, because then again, we will be in the same situation that we were in April. So if we are looking at a number of vaccine doses administered per 100 people, we're looking at India doing the best out of these countries, even better than China. As of October 21st, UK has the least per 100, but their coverage of the population is in pockets close to 100%, in pockets very low. Their coverage in Ireland and Scotland is low. This graph is always very stark for me. If you look at that bottom little thing, that's Africa. And this is a WHO situational graph. And if you look at the yellow one, that's US. Europe and US are contributing the biggest caseloads. Europe is showing an uptick again. The graph is not flattening towards the end. You see there is a sort of prolonged peak, and Southeast Asia is beginning to show a downtrend. The Southeast Asia graph is largely driven by India. Americas are largely driven by US, and Europe is largely driven by UK and Scandinavia. So daily new confirmed cases, India is finally lightening up. Russia, you see, is a big red, a cause of concern because people are not taking vaccine over there as easily. There's Sputnik. Indians have taken better to Sputnik than Russians have. You see that Canada is beginning to lighten up, but US is still brick red. So global situation is not entirely under control. And you see parts of Europe which are really, really brick red, not a good situation. If we are looking at the number of deaths, in absolute numbers, US and India have really suffered. That's also because we have the highest caseloads. The United Kingdom, just over 100,000, Germany around 100,000, Israel way down there. There seems to be in this graph something that we should learn a lesson from. That lesson is not just about vaccination, though it is about vaccination too. And that lesson is, and we will come to that in our subsequent meets, is Israel is a population which is very fit. They are a population which has relatively low inflammation rates. They make fitness a lifestyle. That could be what is contributing to less mortality despite high case numbers. And if we look at US and India, US is the obesity capital of the world and India is the diabetes capital of the world. We have chronic inflammation, which is part of our population character. And we need to be working on that. And we should, there are now voices which are emerging that we should be talking about inflammation, something that Sir talked about very early, that COVID is going to make us more aware of and more alive to the need to deal with inflammation. जो हमारा CRP less than 1 का motto था, we must promote that once again and work on bringing CRP less than 1 back to the forefront. If you're looking at the confirmed cases and deaths for these countries that we are seeing, if more than 500 cumulative million cases in India, total confirmed as of last week has now fallen to less than 50,000. It's around 15,000 now. And confirmed deaths is kind of hitting the baseline now. If you look at UK, the UK graph, Indian graph is kind of beginning to flatten and come down, but the UK graph is going up. However, the good thing about the UK graph is that the mortality has uncoupled from the confirmed cases. So now, and that may be due to the vaccination, even though the number of cases are rising, the number of deaths are stable. We do have to watch over the next 15 days because the mortality is reflected only about a fortnight after the peak hits, the peak hits, but largely mortality has uncoupled from the confirmed cases. Same with US. The US cumulative cases and confirmed cases is now just showing the beginning of flattening out, not yet coming down. but the mortality has uncoupled from there. So as far as, and this is our world in data, where they include policy response indicators, including school closures, workplace closures, travel bans, testing policies, contact tracing, face coverings. So they use a lot of criteria to scale a country on its containment and health index, 100 being the strictest. If you look at India, India is around 70. China is 100. US is around 70 also. So it's not as if we are testing less. It's not as if policy-wise we are lacking. If the numbers are falling, they are falling. If the numbers are rising, they are rising. So we are in a relatively good place right now. But as I said, this is the time to be extremely careful. This is the time to not let our guard down. This is the time to reinforce COVID appropriate behaviors and continue doing the right thing, even though we are tired of it. I mean, frankly, everybody is tired of it. Everybody is looking for a little bit of respite, but हमारे को दिवाली के 2 हफ्ते बाद पता लगेगा कि हमने दिवाली में क्या किया है. And similarly, I think we will get to know around the first week of January, हमने Christmas time पर और New Year पर क्या किया है. So those are the 2 times that we have to actually increase our vigilance rather than let it fall. Whether the second and third wave merge, whether a third wave emerges, really depends on the actions we take now. So this is a WHO COVID dashboard. And if you're looking at the world picture, if you see, Kerala is kind of following the trajectory of the world. The third wave, the wave, whatever it was, second or third, has not quite settled in the world also, largely driven by India and the US. As this settles down, probably UK will take over. And so we have to see that everyone in the world has to become COVID free for us to say that we are done with it. And we are not yet quite done with it. Are you seeing that? This graph and Kerala graph can be superimposed, but with a different scale. This is the way the UK graph is also there. So around the world, the new deaths are showing a 60-day downward trend. The latest daily figures are showing a downward trend. The total confirmed cases are showing a downward trend. So it's a good thing. But how has the epidemic grown? It took about 10 weeks to go from 30 to 60 million. It took 6 weeks to go from 120 to 150 million. And it took less to go from 150 to 240 million. Till this graph starts to taper and fall, we are not yet out of the woods. We are looking at the world situation, cases per million. India has the least, and UK, if you look at UK here, the red one right on top, the graph is on the rise and steep rise. What we saw in our Delta wave, UK seems to be seeing now. And UK is doing a lot of genotype testing. UK is seeing emergence of Delta subvariants. We will know in another 15 days whether these subvariants are variants of concern. As of now, they are studying them and they're variants of interest. But look at India, the green thing right at the bottom. Now the graph is showing a significant downtrend despite pockets where we are still not out of the woods. And I haven't used the word till now, but I would say the pockets where we are seeing the downtrend are driven by ivermectin along with the vaccination. The pockets where the graph is still not coming down are the pockets where ivermectin is not being used. If we are a public health case study, and we should emphasize using everything in our armamentarium to control the pandemic. अब देखो जहां जहां ivermectin यूज नहीं हुआ है, यूके में there was UK, US, they have not used ivermectin. The graph is going up despite vaccination. If we look at the case fatality, India and Israel are kind of around 1%. But if you look at Iran, Germany, they are more than the world average of 2.03. US is quite close to it, 1.6, UK 1.6. So India has done well despite its fight with obesity and diabetes. Despite these comorbidities, India is performing well so far. Even if people say we are underreporting, we are still doing quite well. The vaccine doses administered, India is way up there at 0.3. US is below us. This is per 100 people. UK is at 0.1. These are the three graphs which will tell you how the big three are driving the pandemic in the globe. India's graph is now beginning to fall, UK graph is beginning to rise, and US graph is beginning to flatten. Finally, US coming down, UK going up, Netherlands going up. So you see the shape of the graphs now. The graphs which are going up never really came down. Poland, Russia going up, Germany going up. Look at the shape of the graph. And India coming down. Not time to be complacent, time to be even more vigilant. Because अगर हमने इसके ऊपर एक तीसरी वेव बचानी है, it is up to us. It is up to each one of us. As far as our health system is concerned, the health system has performed. Now it is up to the population. अगर हम, if we have a short memory, if we forget, if we take off the masks, if we collect in big numbers on melas, and we will have another wave. But if we are a little vigilant, we will prevent it. Look at the situation in Asia. Singapore going up. The rest of them all coming down. Laos going up, rest of them all coming down. Singapore's shape is following UK shape. If you see, Singapore is a matter of concern, but it is around 3,000 cases at present. In Europe, UK is going up and it is 43,000. UK, Russia, Romania, Ukraine, Germany, Serbia, Georgia, Netherlands, Bulgaria, Greece, Lithuania, every country over here that you see. Now, if we saw Asia, mostly it is coming down. In Europe, mostly it is going up. Now look at Africa. Again, except Egypt, everything, and Congo, everything is coming down. But look at the numbers: 800, 600, 200, 100. If you look at the numbers in Africa, despite the immune compromised population here, population which is in the midst of HIV epidemic, the population which has not been vaccinated, what is saving Africans? These low numbers. फिर मीनाक्षी हंसेगी. Ivermectin probably has a big role to play here. Look at US. Look at the numbers. If you look at US numbers, they are hitting 100,000 now. They have crossed 200,000. We crossed 400,000. But if you see how the US peaks are kind of prolonged, a little bloated, but our peaks are sharp up and sharp down. So the vaccine rollout, India has been in the good performers. Americas have been in the good performers. Europe largely. Australia, now they have launched a new vaccine, which is a powder-based vaccine which can survive even at room temperature, but requires only ordinary refrigeration. They are very proud of what their vaccine is doing. So, share of the people who have been vaccinated, United Kingdom 75%, Germany 70%, US 65%, India 55%. Now, India, despite its large number of doses, is still around 50% of the population being fully vaccinated. We do need to work on that. But according to WHO, India seems to have come to an endemic state where we might see pockets of cases emerging, but we are unlikely to see a sharp peak rise again. We do need to be vigilant, however. We are better than the world average of 48%. Russia, there is a huge vaccine hesitancy. People are not trusting the vaccine. People are not trusting the government. And Russia is in a little difficult situation right now. Ethiopia, with only 2.6%, is not showing cases more than 100, 150. Africa, ivermectin belt. So the US lawmakers are using India as a case study, because with the large share of COVID positivity coming from India and the US, our achievement of 100 crore jabs is going to make a significant dent in the world numbers. Again, this is not our government release. This is the release of PTI, an international news body. However, it is important also to know that many Indians are unlikely to be fully vaccinated by the year end, despite available number of shots, because of the gap between doses. Now, everywhere else in the world, now they are suggesting 8 to 12 weeks to complete the vaccination. But in India, we had kept it at 12 to 16 weeks. So now we could revise this and come back to the original 8 to 12 weeks if we have to hasten the vaccination. This is what I was telling you. The districts with over 5% positivity rate fell from 55 in the October 14th to 20th week, from 55 to 51, which is a very good thing, because we are now seeing the number of districts with high positivity also coming down. So if we want, now we can have a discussion. And I think in the coming weeks, we should be focusing on obesity, inflammation, and take up the basic molecules which are driving inflammation. So we will be probably doing inflammation and TNF alpha in the next session, and we'll probably be doing obesity and exercise in the next after that. If you have any suggestions, I'm open to suggestions and we can change that. We could do what people want. So Nidesh Malik is saying natural immunity versus vaccine immunity. What data says now? It's a long time to judge. So though it's a long time to judge, and in the last session we had discussed that people are now coming up with tests to actually make an assessment of cell-mediated immunity. And there are tuberculin-like tests available to check whether a person is immune or not. And I'm going to make a very controversial statement here. I feel like even though the vaccines are needed, it is probably the natural immunity which is a more robust immunity. Vaccines are, and antibodies are not the right way to judge. So antibodies are only telling us what is present in our serum, not in our bone marrow, not in our memory bank. And it's only when you are confronted with a fresh trigger that you will realize whether you're immune or not. Also, number of antibodies or the titer of antibodies is no reflection on how immune you are. The antibodies are not only to one component. The natural immunity will give us antibodies to all components, to the structural proteins, to the non-structural proteins, to the open reading frames, to the nucleocapsids. So it will give us antibodies and memory for all components of the virus, which is where the Covaxin probably scores over the other vaccines, and all other vaccines are based on spike protein. Now, even though the spike protein antibodies are the neutralizing antibodies, it is the spike protein which has undergone mutations, and we need to assess how effective the older generation vaccines are before we make booster shots a norm. Now US has said that you can have a booster with any, mix and match. Now, if that is the case, then if at all the people have to be boosted, the ones who have received Oxford should be boosted with Covaxin. But we need to see what the DGCI says for us. And the encouraging thing that the only vaccine which has been approved for 2-year-olds is Covaxin. So there is enough data to say that it is safe and effective. I think natural immunity is more robust. Meenakshi?
Yes, ma'am. I think that we have anecdotal cases other than just the data, what the data is saying, and we have seen that the सबसे पहली बात है कि immunity का मतलब क्या है? What are we talking about? Is it about a reinfection that we are worried about? In that case, the severity of the illness really matters. If you've had a very severe disease, the first time around, then catching it again and getting another severe illness is unlikely. And if you've had a milder disease and the first time around, and then you are exposed to COVID, then you might get serious the second time around. So this is like, even the data has said that there is a mixed bag of patients in this regard. And then agar immunity ki hum baat kar rahe hain about severe illness, again, I think that what I am seeing, and even personally what we are experiencing, is that the people who not have the illness, they none of this is protecting us from getting the infection in the first place. It's just that the disease doesn't get serious, and wo to ho hi raha hai with the vaccine. But when it comes to severity, I don't know. I agree with you. I think the natural immunity is much better. But then that depends on whether or not you had a moderate to severe illness. Agar khali mild illness tha with just gastroenteritis, then I don't know.
But I would also say that that's still not the ideal way to get immune. I mean,
Yes,
it is
of
better
course,
to
of course.
prevent. It is better
Absolutely,
to
absolutely.
prevent.
So vaccine wali jo immunity is good enough, and it's the data is promising. We can see कि जो numbers हैं वो भी काफी कम है. So I've been talking about West Bengal quite frequently because
Yeah.
well, I am from West Bengal, and वहाँ भी दुर्गा पूजा में, if you would have seen, it was much worse than what we were showing pictures of malls a few days ago in Delhi. Much worse, and they've seen an uptick, but then the cases are still in the hundreds. We are not even reaching the thousands. So the vaccines are definitely helping, and Sir was very right in backing the vaccines from the first day itself. So yeah, I think that covers it all.
Madam, vaccine is given to be children by the government. So which
Yes.
government, in which dose that vaccine will be given and which vaccine will be given?
Covaxin hai. हाँ जी,
The
Dr. Nadeem.
the DGCI has approved the Covaxin for use in children. Now, what dose they are going to be using, how they are going to be dosing, we don't yet know. All those things, all those details will be released soon enough.
Okay.
Yes, the Covaxin is the only one that has received the thing. And Dr. Niti, by this definition, जो हम बोलते हैं कि natural immunity is good, by that definition, do you think that Covaxin, the methodology is better since we are giving the whole virion in that, and
Yes, and that's what I was saying, that
it's
it is
something.
So this is the only vaccine which has the whole virion. All others are based on spike protein.
Yeah. So this is what we were like, when we were discussing vaccines, that this is a thing that I had in mind. But then again, where I got stuck is I thought that maybe it is not very immunogenic. It is not, बहुत ज़्यादा robust because it's an inactivated virion. I don't know how robust the immunogenicity would be. So that's the only concern. But then, I mean, if you think about natural immunity, it is pretty much similar to the kind of components that we're exposing the immune system to is pretty much same to what we are introducing in Covaxin as well.
Yeah.
So there's another question by Nidesh Malik. He's asking, some data shows double dose is effective. How double dose around 30% is showing good results in India? The herd immunity factor, he's trying to figure it out. Yes.
Yeah, so the ICMR surveys have shown high seropositivity despite no vaccination in children. It has shown high seropositivity in population in the 18 to 40-year-olds also. So it's probably that we have in the Delta, because Delta was so virulent, that we have, most of us have been exposed to it, and most of us have probably had a clinical, subclinical illness which we haven't realized. So our numbers might even be higher.
So that's everything that we had about the COVID and the vaccination update. Very valid points made by Dr. Nidhi. So this is just the last chance that we have. Ye Diwali nikal jaye with
Exactly.
a good sense of COVID appropriate behavior, and we should be good to go. We can say bye bye to the pandemic for good, maybe at least in India. So it's all जैसा कि मैं और डॉक्टर निधि बोलते आए, खाली मेरे और उनपे नहीं है, it depends on the whole community. So I hope you're all listening, and I hope you're all following the COVID appropriate behavior when you are stepping out in the community. thank you everyone for joining in and continuing the legacy of Dr. K.K. Agarwal. We'll be back next week with another show. Until then, goodbye. So just one more announcement that I had to make is that we would be starting a series on inflammation. Dr. Nidhi is reading a book on immunology, and we would be talking about inflammation. So it would be a series, and just like we had a series on fever, we would be doing it on inflammation, and that would be starting next week. So tune in for more updates on inflammation.